All right, so I wanted to go over a quick example of designing, designing in multiple components together. So I'm going to start off with, I use a center point rectangle all the time, and if you're not familiar how to set your toolbar up, you can find something here and click the three little dots and tell it to pin it in the toolbar and in your shortcuts. So if you pin it in your toolbar, then you can drag it kind of wherever you want. So you'll see that I use the center point rectangle a lot. And with that, I may say that this is 3 inches by kind of some cool things here. I can actually pick this dimension here, this 3 inches, and it makes this one that same size. So you can see if I change that to 4 inches, that automatically changes to 4. Now what's really cool about this is I can add equations in here. So I can say it's always that dimension divided by 2. So now no matter what this dimension is, this is always half of it. So if I go to 3, we can see that's 1.5. So there's some really cool things you can do here, and you don't always have to divide it. You can say minus 0.1 inches, or divided by 2 or whatever. So you can do all sorts of mathematical equations in there. So with this, I'm going to finish this sketch. In fact, before I do that, this is going to be kind of rough. I'm not going to worry too much about dimensions, but this example is I used to use this to design a bike light. And I'm just going to put 2 circles. I put an equal constraint, so they're the same size, and we'll just do something like 1 inch there. And I'm going to dimension to the center of my box and the center of my circle, and we'll do 0.75, and we'll do the same thing here. And I don't like to enter 0.75 because I want to change one dimension. If I decide I want those to come in or out a little bit, I only want to have to change a dimension one time. So I click on this dimension, it links the parameter. So now if I ever come back and say, oh, I really want that to be 1 inch, you'll notice that both of those go to 1 inch. So I oftentimes think about design context and what I may change in the future and just creating a nice clean model. I try to have as few of dimensions as possible, so I add more geometric relationships where I can. So an example of that, I want this point and this point to be horizontal, so that they don't move around like this one. I could put a dimension in here, but it's much cleaner to just say let's put a constraint between these two, so now they're horizontal. So once again, just to see how this all works, if I go to 4 inches, those are always going to stay centered to this box. Doesn't matter what size I make that. All right, so then from there, let's just extrude a couple of things here. So I'm going to return out, or just finish the sketch, and I'm going to go to extrude, and I'm going to pick each of these profiles, and I'm going to drag that back. We'll say something like minus 2 inches. It's a bit far, maybe we'll do 1.5. And then I want to put a front piece on it as well, so we'll turn that sketch back on, and I want it to be a front plate. So I'm just going to extrude, and I don't want to grab the face of that body, which it's not, but sometimes you'll see that it's actually trying to grab the face. If I turn the sketch off, it will grab the front of that and let me extrude or adjust that particular body. So here I'm just going to turn that off, and you can turn things on and off with a little eye next to them, and I use this all the time. You can turn a whole group of things off. So if I have multiple sketches, I can turn the whole group of them on or off, or just an individual one. But since I only have one of each of these, it does the same thing. So I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to extrude it up. Now one of the things that, couple things that's going on here, it's actually joining to the existing body. You can see we have a body here. And I should have extruded that as a component. There are differences between a component and a body, where these are going to be 2 different things that I machine separately, probably have 2 different part numbers. I really should do them as components. If you do them as bodies, you can turn them into components later, but probably a little bit deeper conversation than here. So for now, I'm just going to say we're going to make 2 bodies instead of 2 components, but in hindsight, I probably would have made each of these. Well, you know what, let's do this. I'm going to undo. Let's just undo back, and let's extrude all of that, and we'll drag it back minus 1.5, and we'll turn it into a component. So that's one component there, and I may name it back. And then we're going to extrude, we'll turn the sketch on and extrude that one, and we're going to do a new component, and we'll do something like a plate 0.125. So I have two components in there, and this one we'll just name cover plate. I like to keep things nice and clean and tidy, so I'll give them names. If I want to turn the cover off, I can turn it off there. I can turn off the sketch, and I can come in and say, let's just shell this out to be something like 0.125 as well. Now, setting this up as what is considered a top-down design, these are all controlled by that sketch. So if I go into that sketch by double-clicking and say that's 2 inches now, or we'll say 4 inches, when I return out, you'll notice that all the top and the bottom have updated to be the same size. So oftentimes it's nice to have a single sketch that can control multiple components that are going to be that will work together. Now another cool thing is I could come in here and say, in reality, maybe I want to add some fillets here, and sometimes I'll add fillets as a feature, and sometimes I'll add them as a sketch. Here I'm going to add them as a sketch because I really want it to work on both the front and the back and have them all tied together. Whoops. I'm going to undo that because I like to do these all together so that you'll notice that it ties all the parameters together. So it's basically one parametric value will control all of those. There we go. All right, so now I can say one dimension, I can say 0.25, return out, and now we've put, it's filleted both of those corners, and I can edit that and change that from here, and it updates both components, both top and bottom. Now in here, I'm going to turn off the cover, and let's extrude. So this is, we shelled this, and I want to extrude a piece that presses in here and would probably be epoxied in. You'll notice that I can't use these edges because right now it's using the sketch. So it's trying to use this, this sketch, and there is no edge that I can use. So one thing that I can do if I turn off that sketch and I want to extrude inside of there, you'll notice that I can extrude the outer part but not the inner part. So I'm going to create one more sketch on the front of this and finish that, and that now gives me an inner profile that I can use. So if I grab that and extrude that down in, we'll say 0.25, and we're going to create that as a new component as well, although I went the wrong direction. So let's come in and just do a minus there. So now it's flush. And then probably one last thing, I want to put some holes there that we can put a piece of glass in. So I'm just going to go to my hole command, and I'm going to pick that sketch that we created, and we can do a counterbore on this, and we'll say, I'm just kind of making up numbers right now. The size isn't the big deal here, but I'm going to say the outer diameter here, let's change this real quick. Let's see why it's locking. Oh, it's locking it down because it's looking for a component. Let's just go. There we go. All right. So we want to do a counterbore here, and I'll drag out the bigger diameter, a little bit bigger than the circle. We'll do something. Actually, we'll just kind of do a press fit. So we'll do something like 1.05. And we'll come down that depth there, we'll do 0.125, and then that outer one we'll make a little bit bigger, something like 0.9. So with that, we've created a hole there on the second one. Let's turn off the sketch. So we've basically built 3 components here. We have the back, the cover, and then the inner component. And then, I could finally come in, turn on that sketch. And I know I'm kind of going through this fairly quickly, but let's grab that piece, and we're going to make, in fact, we'll just do one of these and make one piece of glass. Let's just clear out my selection. We'll grab that, say minus 0.1, new component, and that's going to be a piece of glass. And then with that, I'm going to do a copy, and we'll do a paste, and you'll see that it'll give me another glass piece with an occurrence of 2. And this one, we want to get it in the right place, so I can turn off the sketch. I can use the joints that the previous video that I made, pick center to center, and it can just be a rigid and it's locked in. So now it's kind of the fun thing. We can turn them all on, and you can see that we've got a little glass piece in there. If we go to, well, let's go over to our modify and appearance. And with this, we can say the back piece is just, we'll say we're going to paint it glossy white. And then the front, you know, we'll just say glossy black. And then we'll go to glass, and we'll do just color density light. And you can see that we now have a bike light there. And it's all controlled by that first sketch that we created. So if we want to make this 3.5, make it a little bit smaller, maybe 3.25, it's looking a little bit better, and you can see that that it updated all of that. Now from here, you know, you may want to play around with, we could put a fillet on the back edge of this, you know, just kind of play around a little bit. What you will find is you probably want any of those fillets before the shell. And the reason for that, if I grab that and start dragging that, you'll notice that you get a gap there. And what's happening, I'll hit OK, is it shelled it and then it filleted it, and it's not keeping a constant wall thickness across the inner edge as well. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to roll my end of part marker all the way back before the shell. And then I'm going to come in and put a fillet here, and we'll drag it to be pretty big, something like that. And then if I roll forward, that is my shell, and you'll notice if I turn off that front cover plate that it has a nice fillet on the inside as well, which if I had that fillet after the fact, it breaks it like that. So just something to keep in mind, that it does matter how you assemble things, kind of the order in which you go about it. So here, this is called top-down design, and we've modeled all these components basically off of one sketch, that if we change it in one place, everything updates. Same is true if I decide the shell is too thick. We want to do something a little thinner. Notice that that plate that sat down in here is the right size to fit down in there as well. So as long as you kind of follow through that process, you have a pretty robust model that allows you to make a bunch of different changes to the size, and everything works out. So hopefully that's helpful.